Hey guys, welcome back to Two Docs No Degrees. Today we dive in. It's going to be a little bit more diverse than it usually is. Super Bowl recap, of course. You know we have to do that. A little NBA talk. The trade deadline comes up on Thursday at 3 Eastern, I believe. So we're going to dive into that, and then one of the biggest news stories going on right now. Ever since the whole cheating scandal has come out, now we're on to the Red Sox possibly cutting costs and making a costly decision, especially fan base wise, and trying to make money, trying to save money, but it's definitely going to be at a cost to some of the fan base. It is 7:23 on Monday night, so I'm a little behind everybody else. All the big podcasters and stuff like that have pretty much already done their shows, but as always, we kind of bring a fresh take here. So let's dive into it. First thing I want to say is congratulations to Andy Reid. He's one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. He had the most playoff wins, had the most wins period without had the most playoff appearances and wins without a title. Finally gets it. Big ups to him. Being a Cowboys fan, it kind of hurts because he was with the Eagles, hated rival, but it's hard to hate the man. Especially when he's not in your division anymore. Everyone in the league loves him. His players love him. Opposing players love him. He's just a man that everyone enjoys being around, and everyone seems to really gravitate towards. Seems like the kind of guy that makes you want to run through a brick wall. And shout out to Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP. Some discretion there, and I'll kind of talk about that, but after listening to some thoughts and looking at some stats and stuff, it does make sense that he won it. And Chiefs Kingdom, just to all the fans out there, congratulations for the first time in 50 years. You are now holding up the Lombardi Trophy once again. Joe Buck, I know it had to be amazing for him as his dad, Jack, was there. He called Hank Stram and the Chiefs Super Bowl win. And he called it in 69. So 50 years. And 50 years apart from the Super Bowl, and his dad called the last Chiefs one, and now here Joe is calling their victory. It's a great way to round out the 100th season of the NFL. And let's just dive into this recap. We'll kind of go quarter by quarter. That's how I kind of want to break it down, because if you watch the game, you've seen how it kind of just broke down completely quarter by quarter. Mahomes did not play great for 3.5 quarters, then played amazing for the final half. Garoppolo played just good enough to win. He was controlling the game just like he always does for 3.5 quarters, and then the last half of the quarter. So it was just a tale of really not even two halves. It was a tale. The last half of the fourth quarter is really the only time Kansas City really dominated the game. But let's dive into the first quarter. So the first possession, San Francisco. The thing about Patrick Mahomes is the San Francisco front four could get pressure without blitzing. That was one of the things coming into this. That was one of my topics on the Super Bowl preview was San Francisco's front four could get pressure without blitzing, so that allowed them to bracket up top, double cover different receivers, keep them guessing. Keep the KCO guessing with the different coverages they were able to put in, because they could bring four, still get pressure on the QB, even though they were going up against arguably the best pass protecting offensive line in the league, and arguably the best talent in the league in Patrick Mahomes. So that was one of the. But Mahomes, saying that, Mahomes throughout the season was actually worse against the blitz, which was kind of crazy. But when you look at it, a lot of quarterbacks are worse against the blitz because it throws off the timing. So now you have to speed up your internal clock. You're having guys in your face at different angles, especially off of stunt blitzes, stuff like that. These delayed blitzes that San Francisco sometimes likes to throw in, because the reason San Francisco likes to do that is because they know their front four is going to get pressure. So what they do is they understand that those front four guys are going to get pressure. So you wait for that double team to hit one of your guys. That leaves a gap open for a fifth man, a linebacker, or a safety coming up into the box, a safety to come into. So they spy that, and then they attack those holes, and that's how they get pressure on the QB. So it kind of sped up. They were blitzing on third down. First and second down, they were kind of staying back in their zone. They were allowing underneath stuff. They were tackling it. They were tackling at the point of attack, and that was the big thing. But then on third down, they started to blitz, and that was speeding up Mahomes' internal clock. So getting the ball to Kelsey and stuff like that, it was the exact same thing KC was trying to do to the San Francisco offense, was trying to take Kittle kind of out of the game, and it really worked throughout the first part of the game. So we watched them go 3 and out. I believe it was a 3 and out. It ended in a punt. And then the San Francisco offense was able to come onto the field, and they done what everyone expected them to do. They pounded the rock at the start of it. They were running early. The jet motion, which we'll talk about later on we'll talk about later on how they kind of went away from it. At the start of the game, it was a lot of the jet motion offense was what was throwing off the KCD, because there was so much movement on the offense. They would motion Kittle out, and then all of a sudden, here comes Deebo Samuel on the jet motion. So what the 49ers were banking on was they weren't really trying to run tackle to tackle. They were wanting to get that edge out. They were trying to set the edge, and they were letting Deebo kind of get out into the open field and make his plays. And that's how they drove that first end in the field goal, but that's how they were driving at the start of the game. They were getting to the play action early, and it was really with the run game going, they were doing that motion side to side, that jet motion, just that motion Kittle across the offensive line. They were doing that, and it was setting up the run, of course, because once you get the jet motion on the outside, then that forces the defenders to move laterally. So now you can slide that protection on the run, you can push them one way, and you can misdirect the other way, and now you've got Mostert just running wide open pretty much. So that was the biggest thing throughout most of the game, was Shanahan knew exactly what he needed to do to win the ball game. And once he saw that, he was in attack mode for most of the game. But they were running a lot of PA off that jet motion, a lot of bootleg out. They were rolling Garoppolo out of the pocket. But they made a point, and it was there was points made on shows leading up to the Super Bowl and by ex-players that the way that Shanahan has been so good at calling plays is he gets the defense on one side of the field and then opens everything up. Because if you watch the 49ers and the Chiefs, both of them rack, run after catch, yards after catch, however you want to call it, that's where they get most of their yardage from. And especially a guy like George Kittle, who is just a powerhouse, is very hard to tackle, so you got to get 4 or 5 guys in game tackling. Deebo Samuel, who's fantastic in the open field, Mostert, who's come on. So what they do is they're going to use that jet motion, they're going to play action out of it, and now you've got the defense going to one side. So now you've got Kittle, or you've got Mostert out of the backfield, or you've got Sanders down the field finding those soft spots in the zone. So now you've got an entire field it's kind of like the same way with Mahomes. They give him an entire side of the field to work with. So now there's really nothing to do. You've got one-on-one matchups. Garoppolo can hit those throws when he wants to. We'll talk more about that as the game went on. I was very high on him until the fourth quarter, and then he kind of lost me. But It was very easy to watch them and see what was working. It was that jet motion. It was the play action. It was stuff like that. And Shanahan really pounded that a lot. And KC was going with this too deep look on first downs. They were taking Kittle away on third down, which was kind of haltering that offensive flow that San Francisco did, because when Garoppolo drops back on third down, his first look is going to be George Kittle. It's kind of like KC. Their first look most of the time is Travis Kelce on third down. You're going to look for those big tight ends to kind of box out, or both these guys are great at running routes, so they're going to get off the linebackers or the safety coming up into the box that's covering them. So that was a big thing, and it seemed like, and KC couldn't load the box like they did later in the game. They couldn't load the box up in the first half because of that jet motion offense, because they were getting strung so far out. They load the box, they coming up the middle, they were just getting beat outside. The San Francisco offense was setting the edge so well. And it was a win, really, for the KCD to hold Robbie Gould to that field goal in the first. And then you come down, that drive, Mahomes drives them all the way down, gets the 1-yard touchdown run on the option. And the one thing that I saw, and one of the biggest talking points leading up to this, was it's not the same as Lamar Jackson, but it's kind of the same concept. So what you want to do with Mahomes is you want to keep him in the pocket. You're not worried about you're worried about giving him a lot of time to run, or a lot of time to sit in the pocket. But when you're in a defense like San Francisco is, you know you're going to get pressured from those 4 guys. And I think they kind of got too excited. You don't want to rush too far upfield, because once Mahomes gets out of the pocket, that's when he's the most dangerous. He can take off running, but what it does is he extends it out to the side first. He extends it laterally, and his receivers know exactly where they need to go. It's different for a lot of quarterbacks, and Dan Orlovsky made this point, is with Mahomes, it's with other quarterbacks, the receivers, and this goes all the way back to high school and stuff. When your quarterback's out of the pocket, you're taught to come back to him. Give him an easy lane to throw. You don't want him to force anything. With Mahomes, it's kind of different, because a lot of times you see receivers breaking away from him because he can throw across his body for 40 yards downfield. He can do things with the ball that other quarterbacks can't. And that's what makes him different. That's what makes the offensive scheme kind of different. So you want to really keep him in the pocket and force him to throw from the pocket. Now, he is a great pocket passer. He can put the ball anywhere he wants. And you don't want to give him so much time as to where you've just got Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, and McCole Hardman just running people ragged all over the field. But you're willing to give them those little underneath routes. So you're playing that soft zone deep. You're blanketing kind of 15 yards plus. So you're forcing them to hit those little underneath, and they were attacking on point. That was during the first drive. But then as it kind of went along, it was hit and miss with them. Sometimes you would see those front 4, they would keep that pocket, they would keep that pocket presence, they would move offensive linemen to where they could see Mahomes, and they wouldn't rush too far upfield. They wouldn't allow him out of the pocket. They were forcing him to do a lot of these checkdowns, to dink and dunk down the field. They were tackling at the point of attack. They were gang tackling, not really allowing people to get away from them. And then the next drive, you'd see them rushing too far upfield. They'd get too pass pressure happy. Bosa was amazing. He was in double-digit pressures, which is absolutely fantastic against this offensive line, but they were still allowing him out of the pocket. He was making plays with his feet. He was allowing his receivers to get open, finding soft spots in the zone. And it ended up being 7-3 KC at the end of the first. A little low scoring, not what we expected. But then, into the second quarter, the Jimmy G ill-advised pick. And I was at work watching the game, and it was, me and my buddy were talking, and it was, was it a miscommunication with the receiver? But what I seen was he was already deep into his route, and Jimmy had already looked at him. But what happened was Jimmy got that pressure on him, and I feel like it sped him up too much, and it panicked him. And instead of trying to, extend out that play, get out and just throw it away, he throws it up. And it looked like his receiver was kind of running a post pattern, which you had already seen him deep into his route, so I didn't understand the throw. Breeland comes up with the pick. And it was the biggest thing for the San Francisco D, especially in short yardage situations down the goal line, was they weren't handling that option very well. They were covering one person, but they weren't covering the next. So what it is with an option is you have a spy. And a lot of times, once they get outside, it's that spy covers one, the defensive end or whoever's outside, that rover guy. They both cover one guy. So one guy's got the pitch man, and one guy's got the QB, one guy's got the running back or receiver, who's ever receiving the pitch. So you're forcing an indecision is what you're trying to force a loss, because now they have to try to get upfield. They have to try to bust it up. They're not getting to the outside. They have to try to get straight upfield to at least get something positive or get back to the line of scrimmage. You saw on the run, on the 1-yard touchdown run, San Francisco's D, they on the run, they got the guy who was trying to receive the pitch, but they forgot about Mahomes. That allowed him to get into the end zone. And then the next couple times came around, they attacked Mahomes, but then forgot the pitch man. So it was just, they got to the outside. And that was, especially in short yard situations, that was a problem that I saw. That KC drive ended up in a 31-yard Butker field goal. And I thought on that field goal drive is when you really saw kind of the final 4 plays of that drive. San Francisco was creating that pocket. They were forcing Mahomes to sit down in the pocket, but they were also getting pressure on him without collapsing it too much to lose that contain. That's the biggest thing is you can collapse the pocket on him just like me and Carver talked about Lamar Jackson. Collapse the pocket on him, but don't allow that contain to break and allow him to get outside. I think they did a great job on that field goal drive. They've done a great job through most of the first half. They were kind of iffy sometimes, but through most of the first half, they kind of really held him in check, forced him to stay in the pocket. Like I said, dink and dunk down the field, short little passes, 9 yards. He had one play. I think it was one play over 10 yards ball in the air up until that 44-yarder to Tyreek Hill in the fourth. So I mean that they were really doing good of mitigating. They were saying, okay, we'll live with you dropping these short little plays on us, you getting out and running for 4 or 5 yards, having to slide down, you throwing these 8-9 yard passes, us tackling at the point of attack. We're going to bend, not break. We're going to force you to kick field goals. And that was, that I really enjoyed that part of them because that's how you have to play an offense like that with so many weapons. You blanket a zone, you take away those big, deep threats, you stay deep, keep everybody in front of you, and you force them to dink and dunk you down the field, knowing that because of your run game, you're able to control the clock better than they are. You're able to score off of that most of the time because of your run game. You're able to play that. And what really surprised me about this game was, and I didn't even realize this, but up until Mahomes had to kneel at the end of the game, KC had more rushing yards than San Francisco did. It ended up being 141-129, but Mahomes, if he wouldn't have done his kneel downs, actually would have put KC ahead of San Francisco. So that was something coming into the game. It was, San Francisco's going to shut down the run. They're not going to allow you to run. They're going to force you to beat them, and they're going to blanket that zone. They're going to force you to beat them with the run. Well, that's exactly what KC did. They took what they gave him. Andy Reid was amazing. He said, okay, you're going to give me this. I'm just going to continue to do this. We're not going to try a lot of deep shots downfield. We're going to force the ball up the field. We're going to run it down your throats. We're going to dink and dunk, and we're going to get points. It ended up, they didn't really start to get major points until the end of the game, but Andy Reid felt if he just kept to that philosophy, that's how they were going to come back, and that's how they were going to win the ball game. And it was, San Francisco, it was kind of weird watching them do straight dropbacks. And I didn't really understand that because KC was having so many problems with the jet motion. They were having so many problems with the play action. Mostert was really running up the middle a lot and getting yardage. So they were having problems with every aspect of the game because you had stretched them so wide. That front seven really couldn't get a handle on them. And so watching them do straight dropbacks, especially later in the game, I'm not going to, and me and Carver talked about this today over text message, I'm not going to say that San Francisco didn't give the game away, but KC took a lot of that. It was really a double-edged sword as to where KC was taking the game, but San Francisco was also giving them a lot. And, there really wasn't a lot of excitement up until the fourth quarter when KC really got going. Not going to talk a lot about the third quarter because that was really where it kind of got. It was 20-10 at the end of the third. Everyone was kind of, oh my God. That second pick by Mahomes in the fourth, really, it felt like it sealed the deal. Carver texted me and was like, well, mark it down, it's done. Just like I did in the Texans game, with so much time left, I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. And Carver, I brought it up to him today. That was the second time in 3 games that he was wrong about Kansas City, because when Houston was up 21-0, he said the same thing. They're done. Cut it. That's it. And look what happens. I don't know if Carver is the jinx machine and he jinxes the other teams, but as we've seen, KC, this is what they do. They're down. They don't care if they're down. They believe no matter how much time is on the clock, with the offense that they have, with the guy who leads them, with their coach, they believe that they're going to be able to win the ball game. And that's what happened in the fourth. The 1-yard touchdown reception by Kelsey, 5-yard touchdown reception by Damian Williams, 24-20 with 2:44 left. What I really thought sealed the game for KC was the kick coverage. It was amazing. I mean, if you look at the starting field position for San Francisco, they were backed up to their own 15, their own 20 down a lot because the kick coverage was so well. Anytime KC kicked off, it seemed like 11 guys were swarming the football and taking the man down. I thought that was the biggest, really one of the biggest takeaways from the game was that, it doesn't get talked about. Special teams isn't really a big talking point, but the field position that KC forced San Francisco in really got dangerous because deeper in the game you're having to make longer drives. You're forcing the ball game to be on Jimmy G's arm, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, is what happened to Jimmy G and stuff like that. But that's kind of what KC did, and even going into the game, Andy Reid felt that he had the better special teams. I think it showed, and I think that ultimately was a big factor in what happened with San Francisco down the stretch. But so 31-20, that ended up being the final score. KC's D made plays when they needed to make them. San Francisco really did kind of give the game away. But I want to talk about one of the narratives that kind of caught my eye. It's a very simplistic narrative. It's a very simplistic way to look at things. I talked to Carver and he kind of talked me down from what my original take was. But I heard a lot of people, I watched a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people posting on my Facebook and Twitter feeds that, well, why is Shanahan, not just pounding the rock, not just running between the tackles, taking the time off the clock. My thing was why deep in the game was he not doing jet sweeps, especially when you got a Kansas City defense who, in that fourth quarter, were in that really last quarter and a half, were just loading up the box and saying, if you're going to beat us, Jimmy's going to have to throw the ball, or you're going to have to beat Derrick Henry, and you're just going to have to run through all of us. And it has been the formula for winning down the stretch is we're going to pound the rock up the middle. We're going to get these yards. We're going to force time off the clock. But unless you have a running back like Derrick Henry, and teams are putting 8-9 people in the box, unless you have a running back like Derrick Henry, who it doesn't matter how many people are in the box, he can get you 4 or 5 yards a carry. That's a very simplistic way to look at things, and it's a very outdated way to look at things. Now, running the ball, I do agree that Shanahan really should have ran the ball more. Mostert only had, I think, 12 carries or something like that, which is insane. Mostert should have had 20+. He has been good enough down the stretch. Mostert should have been the one. Him and Debo should have been the only 2 people touching the football at the end of the game. And they probably run that down and win it. They had a chance to win it. As I get deeper into the Jimmy G saga, I'll talk about that throw. But I talked to Carver about it, and me and him kind of agreed to where the simplicity of just running the ball at the middle really wasn't going to work. But stretching, getting outside, getting those lateral plays, setting the edge like you had been doing throughout most of the game, that's what was winning. And Shanahan kind of went away from that. He started doing he was trying to keep them off balance of play action, but it was just straight back play action. And what I mean by that was just kind of dive plays, just play action off of dive plays instead of getting those men in motion, faking that jet sweep motion and getting Samuel out into the open field, getting guys like Kittle out into the open field. Shanahan went away from that, and that's not what had gotten him to that point. That's not what had won them games all season. It felt like maybe he was trying too hard to put the Falcons' loss behind him, which, if you remember, Shanahan was the OC in Atlanta. He was the play caller in Atlanta when they gave up that 28-3 lead to New England and ultimately lost. So it felt like maybe he was trying too hard, and maybe he was playing to the narrative of, well, Jimmy G can't do it. Jimmy G can't make the throws in crunch time. He's not the guy who's going to lead you down the stretch. So it felt like those guys were kind of incohesive as to where Shanahan wanted to show that he could do it, but he also wanted to show that Jimmy could do it. And that's ultimately really what cost them the game. Was they got away from, I know I've said it over and over again, I've repeated kind of the same phrases, but that's how much it needed to be pounded, was play action passes off that jet motion, not just straight dive play action bootlegs, get everyone out into an open field, force one-on-ones out into the open with Samuel, with Sanders, with Mostert kind of coming out and motioning out of the backfield, with Kittle blocking for the run and then releasing. Force those one-on-ones, because they've shown that rack is their thing, is they don't get tackled very easily. You're going to have to gang tackle to get them down. And that, that's really ultimately what cost them the game. It wasn't the simplistic approach that everyone wanted to do, pound the rock up the middle against those 8 or 9 guys in the box, because you're not going to get any yardage, because KC wanted you to do that. They wanted you to run between the tackles. But if you would have stretched the field and you would have forced KC back into that zone and back into that two deep formation, to where they can't rush those 8 or 9 in the box, because they're going to lose that contain on the outside, because they were blitzing between the tackles most of the time. They were just bringing the house in that final quarter. And that's really, I think, kind of what ultimately threw Shanahan off, was he wasn't expecting that. He was expecting them to still kind of play their game, because they felt because they have that quick strike offense. But Spagnuolo completely threw Shanahan off by bringing the house so much and forcing, it really wasn't so much as force, but it made Shanahan, it did kind of force him to overthink things. And his thought process was, well, we're going to make that defense pause with this play action straight drop back, and we'll get one-on-ones out there. But the thing was, they weren't pausing. It seemed like Spagnuolo and Reed really kind of told their defense, guys, we're going to stack the box. We're going to rush 8 or 9 guys. We're going to rush 7, 8, 9 guys most of the time in this final quarter. If you see the running back, then you're tackling that run, but you're also going after Jimmy. You're getting pressure on Jimmy. And I don't think that they had seen how well the play action had paused that defense, so they felt that was what was going to happen in the final quarter, and Shanahan just kind of went away with what had won him the game the whole time, winning games all season, won everything in the playoffs. But to Shanahan, I don't believe he is a bad coach, and I do not believe Jimmy G is a bad player. I believe he is a good player. I believe he can make the throws when put in the right situation. He's not going to make the throws that Patrick Mahomes makes. He's not going to make throws that Aaron Rodgers makes. That's a very unfair assessment because of how much more talented than everybody those two guys are, even Russell Wilson. But I believe that he can make the throws. If he puts a little, to that point, if he puts a little air on that, a little more air on that throw to Sanders and allows him to run under it, we're probably looking at a San Francisco. I'm not saying it's a lock, but I'm saying that it is very, it was a thing to where, okay, we're probably going to see a San Francisco Super Bowl, because what happens is with that, you score that touchdown, so now you can play in that kind of, you can drop back in that blanket zone. And that's what happened with the KCD, is they got a little too happy, or the San Francisco D, they got too happy. They dropped out of that zone. They went to a lot of man. That's what happened with Richard Sherman, Tyreek Hill. Those guys are not going to be, Sammy Watkins. Those guys aren't going to be covered one-on-one. You're going to have to play that blanket zone, and San Francisco kind of came out of that, and they started blitzing, which I didn't really understand was this late in the game, you can't allow big yardage plays. So what you do if you're the San Francisco D, and I don't know what Robert Salah saw, I don't know what Kyle Shanahan saw, but if you're gonna play Kansas City deep in the game, you want them to stick to that underneath stuff that they had stuck to the whole game. You want to play that blanket zone. You want to bracket over the top. You want to double over the top. You want to keep them guessing on the coverages, because now what you force them to do is you force them to take more time. Mahomes has to sit back there. He has to run around. He has to give his receivers time. So now you're running time off the clock. So now you're playing clock management with your defense and not your offense. Because even if he rushes 4 or 5 yards up the field, you force him to slide, you just ran probably 10, 15 seconds off the clock, and now the play clock's going to keep running. So now you've probably ran another 20, 25 seconds off the clock. So you're running probably 35, 45, 40, 45 seconds off the clock for every play. And that's what you wanted. But they kind of came out of that zone. They dropped that blanket coverage. They started blitzing with their linebackers, and that left a lot of one-on-ones over the top. Sherman is one of the best corners in the NFL. He's going to go down as one of the greatest, but he is a zone coverage corner. That's what he does. He's always played the same defense. He's not really a man, especially as he gets older. He's not really the man type, especially against speed. Young guys like that, they're going to beat him over the top. Now, throw to Watkins, I didn't really understand. I don't know what Sherman felt. It looked like he had safety help over the top, but the safety looked like he was playing too far in the middle. Watkins beat Sherman to the outside. Sherman thought that safety help was there. It wasn't. It allowed Watkins to get to the outside, and then it was just dime dropping delights from Mahomes, just like he had done all season. So I didn't really understand that. But I don't want to take anything away from KC. I don't want to take anything away from Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes. They played a half a quarter of football that they needed to play to win. That's what happened. They made the adjustments in that last half, and really that last quarter as a whole. They made the adjustments they needed to win the ball game. San Francisco didn't. Yes, they went away with their tendencies. They went away with kind of what won them the game, what had them winning the game, what had won them games all year. So you can say that, yes, they gave the game away, but you also have to give as much credit. I believe it's more 50-50. You have to give as much credit to KC taking the game as San Francisco giving it away. But Andy Reid secures his spot in Canton, Ohio. He is a very fun-loving guy. One of my favorite quotes that I read today was, they asked him, did he spend the night with the trophy? He said, no, I didn't spend the night with the trophy. I spent the night with my trophy wife. Bonus points as a husband right there. That's just the kind of man that he seems like he is he seems like he's just very happy-go-lucky. We're going to motivate, you're going to love me, you're going to want to do things for me, and that's the type of coach that you need. Now, down the stretch, as we look to the future, do I believe that San Francisco may have a brighter future than KC? It is very possible, because I believe still San Francisco, with tweaking on coaching, they need to go back and watch this game and realize, okay, this is what won us ball games. This is what we need to do consistently. That's going to be their key talking point. And I hate to say it, but even though I believe Jimmy G can make the throws when he has to most of the time, maybe he is not the guy. Maybe San Francisco doesn't feel that he is the guy that's going to lead them far, far into the future. Shanahan loves him. He's loved in San Francisco. The players love him. But only time will tell, can he learn from this experience, and can he be the guy? Because we know in Kansas City, Mahomes is the guy. Mahomes is going to get, it was reported before the game that he is reported to get a $40 million a year extension from KC, which is well deserved. That man deserves to get paid any amount of money that he asked for. But it's going to be only time will tell with Jimmy Garoppolo, and if he and Kyle Shanahan, if they are the guys that are going to lead this next San Francisco dynasty, if they're going to be the next great thing in San Francisco. So That's going to be a huge thing to look at as we move into the years forward. But Mahomes solidified himself as he is the best quarterback in the world at this point. I'm not saying he's GOAT status. I do not agree. I believe he is the most talented QB we have ever seen. I believe that is undisputed. That is no doubt. But GOAT status is Tom Brady to me is the GOAT. Now, we have some thoughts on Tom Brady, and as more news actually develops, we'll talk about that more. But, I have come to the conclusion I've not been a huge Brady fan throughout his career, but I do believe that he has become the greatest of all time. Now, do I want him to leave New England? I absolutely want him to leave New England because I want him, if it wasn't Belichick, I want him to be able to show us that with more weapons. We want him to go to a team that has more weapons than New England has, that sets him up for a good run in the last 2 or 3 years of his career. He doesn't have to win a Super Bowl. That is not. If he can lead a team past the divisional round without Belichick, I believe that solidifies his status as the GOAT until Mahomes eventually passes him. But Belichick has shown that he can win without him. Brady, I want him to leave New England, not for the fact that I want New England to suck. It's the fact that I want him to show that he can win without Belichick. But Mahomes is the man going into the future. He broke the Madden curse. The Drake curse is alive and well. So it's kind of a double thing there, as to where one curse is broken, but now Patrick Mahomes makes it seem like the Drake curse is absolutely for real, even after we saw Toronto win the NBA title last year. That's really all I have on NFL right now. Last game of the season until August, so it's time to just buckle down. We'll bring you the storylines as we go. Once we get to the draft show, we'll dive into the prospects there, what we think should happen, and where we think people will go in the draft. But it's shaping up with the free agents that are going to the market. It is shaping up to be an exciting free agency, especially with the big names like Brady being on the market, Brady, Breeze, people like that. It's shaping up to be really exciting. I really got to give this NFL season as a whole, there wasn't a lot of drama. The Antonio Brown stuff was a drama for a little while, but everyone kind of just shunned him to the side after a few months. So I gotta give this has been one of the better NFL seasons in a while, and ended with a good game down the stretch. It ended up with a lot of great storylines, a lot of great pushes in the playoffs. So overall, from A+ to an F-, I'd probably give this an A. This NFL season to me was amazing. It kept people engaged. There were a lot of storylines. A lot of people that you didn't expect to have great years had great years. And like I said, it ended up with a great game. But now that football's over, I want to hit baseball really quick, because there's really only one story that we want to talk about baseball right now, and that is the Mookie Betts trade. So Peter Gammons, I believe he's from The Athletic, tweeted out today that there are 3 different National League folks that said that the Betts to LA trade, the Red Sox to Dodgers trade for Mookie Betts, is inevitable. Little background on this. The Red Sox and Mookie Betts avoided arbitration. In January they reached a 1-year, $27 million agreement for this season. But he's an unrestricted free agency after this season. Boston is trying to cut costs. They're trying to reduce everything this offseason. They signed a lot of guys to 1-year deals, so they're really on a lot of pressure to get some guys re-signed. But right now the consensus deal is, I haven't really dove into these players, but right now the thing is, it seems like a lot of prospects. Alex Verdugo, infielder Jeter Downs, pitcher, maybe a single-A prospect. Left-handed pitcher Caleb Ferguson. He's kind of a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, curveball kind of guy. 113 to 39 strikeouts to walk ratio and 93.1 inning pitch, so he could be an eventual starter. Another report was that David Price is possibly going to be a part of the deal. I have my own thoughts on that as a Red Sox fan. Kiki Hernandez from the Dodgers, who is a very utility guy. He can play the infield, he can play the outfield. He's good at the plate, he's good in the field. He can do everything good. So I'm not saying it would be a bad thing to get him, but if you're going to trade away one of your marquee players, or one of the marquee players in the entire league, it really needs to be a lot more than just a couple of prospects that not really everyone knows about, but are big names in the Dodgers organization. And, Kiki would be a great addition, but you would want more if you're going to trade David Price, who is a little older, but last year was kind of a down year. But the playoffs before that, when we won the World Series, yes, the whole Alex Cora thing kind of looms over. We're waiting to see what happens there. I'm holding my bias for that. I'm holding my opinions on that until kind of this investigation gets deeper on the Red Sox. But Price showed that he can win in the playoffs with the Red Sox, and that was a big thing. Yes, him and even Chris Sale took a dive last year. It was insane. But Mookie Betts has been consistently good, and he's been consistently one of the marquee players, one of the better players in Major League Baseball. So if you're looking to sign one of your one-year deal guys, it seems like Mookie Betts would be the option to be the man that you would sign. Principal owner John Henry and Tom Werner, the chairman, they said this past September that they wanted to get under the $200 million luxury tax threshold before our 2020 campaign starts. That's why they seem to be pressured to trade Betts. So what they're looking at is they're wanting to move Betts. So the thing is the reason they don't want a marquee player back for Betts is because they don't want to hit their payroll hard. Is they want to get rid of Betts, but they don't want the payroll to be impacted so much to where they're not able to do what they want to do, and that's get under that luxury tax threshold. So moving, they're wanting to improve their prospect groups. So they're looking more towards the future, not a win now type of thing. They're really wanting to offload a lot of contracts before 2020 really gets started, so that they have money to spend on prospects. And it's just they're wanting that depth in the minor league system. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to sell this to the fan base. We lost Alex Cora because of this investigation. We don't know where this investigation is going. So why are you trying to induce more possible heartache on us as fans? So it's going to be hard to sell us on that. He was an MVP in 2018 when he won the World Series. He's won 4 Gold Glove, 3 Silver Slugger awards since 2016, 4 straight All-Star selections. His win above replacement is 35.4 of the past 5 seasons. It's only second to, of course, Mike Trout, who's arguably the greatest player to ever play baseball, at 44.2. For some reason, his sustained success has thrown us off of this, which I don't understand why. But there'll be more stories come out about that. It looks like it's inevitable. It looks like Betts will no longer be a Red Sox here soon. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I will be very upset. So when we start talking about baseball, expect me to go on a little rant when it comes to the Red Sox, just like I did in the cheating scandal. But that's really all I have on that right now until we start getting more baseball stories. And it looks like the Dodgers are gearing up to make another World Series run if they're able to get a Price Betts package for just these small little prospects and not give up Kiki Hernandez. It's looking like they're going to be geared up for another run. Now, for the first time on this podcast, it's time to look at the NBA. Like I said, trade rumors are starting to swirl. There's really only about 3 or 4 stories leading into this Thursday that we're really looking at. But first, I want to talk about the most anticipated debut in the NBA in a very, very long time, and that's Zion. Coming off an injury, he had to relearn how to run, had to relearn how to walk, so no one really knew how he was going to be. He came in his first game. He's now been in 6 games. I just watched the Rocket game yesterday, so I have some thoughts on that for both of them. But it's ridiculous, a man his size, how quick his first step is. And that's how he beats you. Is even outside as big as he is, his first step is so quick he can drop by you. And it's crazy when you watch him how explosive he is. When he gets up off the ground, he leaves defenders just standing there, flat-footed. They're looking up at him while he's dunking the ball in the basket. And that's before he's dunking the ball before they can even react. He's really playing bully ball. They get the ball down inside to him. A lot of times he is on a smaller defender, but he guards the bigger guys down the court. So he's literally bullying grown men, which is insane for a young kid like him. He's playing hard, which is what we expected. He is a hustle guy. He is meeting his expectations. One of the few things that really worries me about him, and I talked to a few people about this, is the injury possibility with how hard he plays, how big of a body he is. It's worrisome that 4 or 5 years down the road, he's going to end up possibly out of the league or, a diminished role, because his minutes have become more, but you're starting to see the fatigue, which can lead to injury. So I believe that the Pelicans really need to look at that. They need to watch this last Rockets game where running up and down the court, he had really gotten gas. The fatigue was showing. He was really huffing and puffing a lot. It looked like he was lollygagging down the court. It's not that he wasn't hustling. It's just that he didn't have the gas to hustle as hard as usual. So looking at the fatigue now, but that's going to get better. I understand that. As the game goes along, he just came back from his injury. It was his legs, so that's very hard to deal with. So as the season goes along, his fatigue is going to diminish. He's going to play deeper in the games. He's going to be more high energy deeper in the games. But like I said, with how big he is, how hard he plays, my thing was I said there's 3 guys he needs to go look at the tape of, and that's Charles Barkley, of course, a round-mounded rebound, who was able to play for a long time, as big as he was, as hard as he played, as physical as he was inside. He was able to play for a long time. I think that Zion needs to go back and look at the way he played basketball. He needs to go look at Shaq, playing bully ball, playing strong inside. How was he able to stay kind of healthy throughout his career? How was he able to play for such a long time? Hakeem Olajuwon is another one, because of that quick first step, because of being able to take guys from outside in, because of the explosiveness he has, the quickness inside, the spin move and stuff like that. Looking at those 3 guys, I believe that that's something that he needs to do. Look at tape of them. The New Orleans really need to see how those 3 guys were handled throughout their careers. What I would like to see New Orleans do is look and see how those 3 guys were handled deep into their careers, because with the injury that Zion had, I would handle him like that for now, especially through the last part of this season. Handle him like that now, and then going into the next season, then that's when you can really start hammering. I believe that he needs to kind of lean up. I don't think that he can play at this size for a very long time. So leaning up is going to be another possibility. I'm sure, as heralded as New Orleans, or Anthony Davis kind of had some strong words, but a lot of other people have said the New Orleans health staff isn't as bad as they played it out to be. So that'll be a situation to monitor and just watch Zion for the rest of this year. I don't believe he's going to win Rookie of the Year. I believe he's been hurt too long. I believe he's not I believe he has to have an awe-inspiring season, an awe-inspiring second half to be able to win Rookie of the Year. I don't think it's going to happen because I believe he's missed too many games, so we'll see how that all plays out. But he's going to win plenty of awards in the future. It's going to be amazing for him. But watching him play against Houston, Harden, after a horrible month, one of his worst months in his career, shooting the ball 35.7%, I believe, he found his stroke. He became a new man, or he became the Harden that we know in this first game in February. And, watching him, I believe Doris Burke, who I really admire, I believe she was making great points as to where when you're looking at defenders, in basketball, when you're watching a guy dribble, and I seen it in a college game Saturday night before I watched this Rockets game, when you're watching a defender dribble the ball, what you're supposed to do, now you're taught to look at the guy's waist because he can't go anywhere without the waist. But what a lot of guys do, a lot of elite defenders, a lot of guys who understand it, they're going to watch the ball. They're going to watch the swing of the arms, because what they're doing is, I'm going to time you. And as soon as I see you going for that, as soon as you're ready to make that step to try to go by me instead of just dribbling towards me and backing me down, as soon as you make that step to go by me, once you take that dribble, my hand's going to be there knocking away. We're going the other way. And so Harden kind of takes that mindset to the offense. And so what he does is he's going to dribble to you. He's going to back you. He's going to push you back because he does have speed. He has that quick first step. He can get to the hole. He can force you to foul him. So it's damn if I do, damn if I don't kind of thing. But Harden, what he's going to do is he's going to walk you down and he's going to watch you. And what he's looking for is he's looking for you to lean back. And what that gives him is that split second that he needs to get the ball over your fingertips. So he's watching you, he's backing you down, backing you down, backing you down. Then as soon as he sees you drop on that back foot, because you're worried about him going by you, he's going to pull up. If you lean too far in, he's going to dribble right by you. So that's why it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't kind of situation with him, because of how great he is. And I believe he is solidifying his spot as the greatest scorer we have ever seen. But I would tell kids, watch him. And if I'm watching a game with a kid, and they're so awe-inspired by Harden, I'm awe-inspired by Harden. I believe that if he ups his defensive game a little bit, we could be and gets a couple of titles under his belt, we could be talking about GOAT status before long, moving into this new era of basketball. You have GOATs of eras. You have Jordan, who was a GOAT of his era. He wasn't asked to do the things that LeBron James is asked to do, so that's kind of an unfair statement. LeBron James is the greatest all-around player that we've ever seen. He is the most talented. He's asked to do a lot more things than a lot of other players have been asked to do. He's the greatest of his era. Now we're moving into a new era. LeBron is still playing LeBron ball. It's amazing what this man has been able to do in his career. But Harden, moving into this new type of basketball that we've seen over the past few years, you're looking at Harden possibly, him and Durant battling to see who's going to be the best in this new era. Because Harden makes everything look so effortless. It just looks so easy. It looks like basketball is the easiest thing in the world when you're watching James Harden. And that's what I would tell kids nowadays, and this is not a bad thing to tell, and it would seem like a bad thing when I say it, is you can't do that. Not right now. That is not just, that's God-given talent, but that's also the work that he's put in. He adds something new to his game every year. And that's something that, not everybody can do. Harden is a very rare breed. He is one of the elites, and he continuously adds stuff to his game offensively. Defensively, he really does need to add a lot more. He really needs to show a lot more effort at stages. He needs to be greater in the playoffs. But he has found his stroke, and that is dangerous. He's going to continue this more than likely. It's what he does. We'll see how the playoffs come to, but You're looking at possibly another MVP season from James Harden, but maybe he missed his window because now you've got the Lakers and the Clippers waiting on him. But he just makes the game look so easy on the offensive end. It's ridiculous. You would think basketball is the easiest game in the world to do. You would think putting the ball in the hole is easy. It's not, but he makes it look so effortless. A couple more talking points on New Orleans. Brandon Ingram is definitely something to smile about. I mean, they haven't lost much since losing Davis because of Ingram and how he stepped up. And now with Zion playing the way Zion is, it really is going to be something dangerous. In that, I believe that they're set up for greatness, or I believe that they're put together great. I do believe. My thought process was, and this was when Lonzo Ball was saying he didn't want, or when LeVar Ball was saying he didn't want Lonzo traded from the Lakers to the Pelicans, I thought that was going to be a great pairing. Jrue Holiday is a veteran guy. He knows what he's doing. He's very, very good. And I believed pairing him with Lonzo would help him out a lot because Jrue could space out the floor for Lonzo, because that's what Jrue does. He spaces the floor for you. He can make plays. He is a playmaker. He's a 3-and-D guy. That's what he does. But looking at how young this roster is very well set up for the next 4 or 5 years, as long as they can keep a lot of these guys under contract. I believe that letting a veteran go is not going to be a bad thing for them. Jrue Holiday, if you can get a package of a couple of young guys for him, send him to a team that really is looking to stock up on a veteran guard. If you can get a package like that with a couple of young guys for Jrue Holiday, I believe that that's going to better you in the future because you've got your guys. You've got Harden, you've got Ball, you've got Ingram, you've got Zion. Favors is nearing kind of the end of his career. He is on the backside of it, but he's still a veteran guy. So you really don't need, Lonzo and Josh Hart have really come into their own. You have Redick there, so you don't really need that Jrue Holiday type of veteran there because you have Redick there. So I believe that at this trade deadline, that's one of the trades. It's one of the rumors that's one of what people would like to see is Jrue being traded somewhere, possibly a contender, getting a couple of young guys for him, and just securing that 4, 5, 6 year future with these young guys. I want to talk about the 76ers. My Celtics dominated them Saturday. It was a horrendous showing by the 76ers. They're supposed to be an elite defensive squad. That really didn't show, which is crazy because of the amount of length that they have. But my talking point on the 76ers, I believe that they're a trade away. And hear me out, this is going to sound crazy because they are known as one of the better duos in the league. But can Philadelphia get to where they need to be? Yes, they should. They had Toronto beat last year, albeit, Kawhi hitting an amazing three. I believe Philadelphia had that series won, and then that crazy three goes in for Kawhi. But if you look at guys like Milwaukee, Giannis is going to get to the hole. He's not going to shoot outside a lot. He has become better at the three-point shot, but that's not his forte. He wants to get inside. He wants to bully ball you. He wants to back you down. What Milwaukee has done is they've built around that. Is they're going to spread the floor. They're going to get four. They're going to play 5 out most of the time. 5 guys outside the 3-point line. Nobody. A lot of times, nobody 15 foot in, because now that's going to allow Giannis that space in the paint to occupy that and to get there off the dribble, to give the ball away, post up, bam. You've got Giannis down there who has that quick move. He has those quick feet. He has that long range. The 76ers, it's really hard to watch because they're such an unorthodox team, and it's such a traffic jam most of the time. It is really a shit show, as I've seen in the Boston game. Is their spacing is absolutely horrible most of the time, and a lot of that stems from that Simmons and Embiid dynamic. Now, the pros of this Simmons and Embiid thing is they're 2 great players, and, 2 great players, and, 2 great players, and 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 at times the little pick and rolls that they do and stuff like that, it does work, and it's very good having two big men like that who can get into the paint and can create their own shot, who are so much better usually than the people guarding them, that they're able to just get any shot they want. The problem with this is when Simmons tries to drive to the hole, there's one man there, and that's Embiid. They added Horford. Horford plays outside a lot, which because he can. Embiid can play outside a lot, but that's not where you want him. You want that big 7-foot body down low. You want him working in the post because that's where he's best at. You don't want him taking, you'll live with 2 or 3 threes a game, but you don't want him taking 5+, which is insane. I haven't looked at the averages, but he takes way too many outside shots. You want him 18 feet in. You don't want him 19 feet out. But Simmons forces him to play out, and that creates a log jam in the middle, and it's very detrimental to their spacing. It's detrimental to the team. It allows defenses to converge, to play help defense without giving up a lot of ground, and that's a huge con for them because of how much the game is spaced out. Now, I believe Simmons is a great point guard. He has great court vision. He makes the right plays. I believe that it would be better for them to trade Simmons away because I believe that Philadelphia is going to gravitate towards Embiid more anyways because of how great he is. He's arguably the best center in basketball, and when he's at his best, he's one of the top 10 players in the league. Simmons is up there, but I believe that he needs to go to a team that doesn't have that bogged down in the middle, that doesn't have a guy like Embiid who's going to set in the post. Where is that? I'm not really quite sure. I'd have to dive more into the rosters, and now that we're getting deeper into the NBA season, getting close to postseason time, I am going to start talking more NBA stuff, especially playoff pictures, stuff like that. But I believe a Simmons trade, it's not going to happen before the trade deadline. Brett Brown, the 76ers, Elton Brand, they're going to ride this out, and they're going to see where this takes them. But Simmons getting traded, I don't believe is a bad thing for the 76ers. And I believe that you can get a lot for Ben Simmons. But what you're going to do is if you get rid of Simmons, now you have a spacing court. Now you have 4 guys who are going to play outside, and Embiid is going to have the post to himself. He's going to be able to work on these other centers, work on these other 4 guys, and just dominate down low, and that's what you want. You don't want Simmons driving in and attracting 4 or 5 guys, 3, 4, 5 guys, and creating that logjam there, and you not getting easy shots. You can get easy shots, but I believe that Simmons is going to have, at some point, you're going to have to make a sacrifice. Can they come out of the East? Yes, they absolutely can, but I don't see them beating a team out of the West. Unless it's Houston, who, as when I get to this trade rumor, they're looking to go small ball. But Simmons getting traded would not be a bad thing for Philadelphia. I actually believe it would be a good thing. You space out the floor more. You don't create that logjam in the middle. Embiid has more space to work. He doesn't have to play outside a lot to allow Simmons that lane. And Simmons goes to a team that spaces the floor out more, plays kind of a smaller ball, and if it wasn't for Russell Westbrook, I would say that honestly Houston would probably be a great spot for Ben Simmons because of how well he can work inside. But we'll see how this all plays out. I do believe it's going to come down to them in Milwaukee. I believe Milwaukee is the best team in the East. I believe Milwaukee will come out of the East this year. We'll see. We'll see how all that plays out. But be on the lookout for this over the coming season or two. I believe that you're going to get some rumors swirling around Simmons and Embiid. And if I'm Philadelphia, I'm looking to move Simmons more than I'm looking to move Embiid. So to round out the pod tonight, we're going to look very shortly into it's 3 or 4 trade rumors I found. It's a Bleacher report that is talking about the 3 biggest really trades. The biggest talking point right now is Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets. are they're talking Clint Capella trades, who is their center. They're not really, they haven't been that great offense that we're used to seeing, but they've been good, and it seems like they're looking to go small ball. They're discussing a lot of trades for Clint Capella, the Celtics, which I don't want us to do. I believe that our team is set up very good. I don't believe Capella helps us. I don't believe he hurts us. I believe it doesn't make us any better because of what we would have to give up to Houston. They're asking for first rounders. What they're trying to do is they're asking for first rounders to try to create an impact wing player out of that. They're trying to get assets from Capella so that they can get those other guys that they need. So it's going to be they're trying to get away from the deadline with a wing and a center off this Capella trade, but what they want is they want a center who can space out the floor more. He's only 25 years old. He is a huge rim runner. He's a big protector. It's a lot of plug-and-play stuff with him. It is enough for a win-now team or a youth team just looking to rebuild. So I mean, it is a very capable. It's a very capable trade for anybody. He is a very capable player. He's a very young player. So we'll kind of see. They're looking for a lot of that. They really want a lot from it, so we'll see how that all plays out. Derrick Rose is a player who's been thrown around, but Detroit, they're wanting a lottery level first pick according to the Athletic. That's a very high price to ask. He is a former MVP. He is showing signs of his older self. He is having a fantastic year. But he hasn't played 67 plus games since 2011. He's had some health concerns this year. So it's going to be, if you have a backcourt opening and if you want to give your offense a better look, Derrick Rose is a very good piece to grab, but it comes with a high price, especially if you're trying to give up, especially if you want to give up a lottery. I don't see Rose getting moved because of the high asking price that Detroit wants. There's very few teams that really aren't going to be willing to give up a guy. He's 31 years old, so he's still somewhat young, but because of the injuries, he's probably 2 or 3 years older than what that 31-year-old, what that 31 entails. A lottery pick is going to be a very high asking price. The 76ers could supply a top 20 protected pick, so maybe the Pistons want to go for something like that. And the thing is, that's another dynamic, is if Philadelphia is willing to, if Detroit wants that top 20 protected pick, so you go out, if you're Philadelphia, you go out and get Derrick Rose. You can sign him to a multi-year deal if he plays out well the rest of the season. So what that gives you is, even though he's getting older, now this goes back to the Simmons thing, is I believe that you could get Simmons out of there, and with the feel good of Derrick Rose, with how good he is, with how good he's come back, even though he has those injury concerns, if he can stay healthy, somewhat healthy, then he allows Embiid to be that guy down low. He allows you to space the floor out more. He can drive to the hole. He can be a pick and pop guy. The thing about Philadelphia is you could plug a lot of point guards in there to be a pick and roll guy with Embiid and Horford and Harris and all those guys. You don't have to have a great point guard to lead Philadelphia. And I believe that it is, like I said, it's going to be a very detrimental thing to this franchise to keep Simmons on as the years go by. So we'll see how all this plays out. But you can get a lower end point guard to take Simmons' spot and still create that same dynamic. The the Sixers and the Lakers are looking to be the two teams to really go after Rose. Kuzma could be involved in that trade, but that, as we get closer over the next couple days, we'll start to look more into that. Really, that's the biggest stories when it comes to the NBA trade rumors right now, and that's gonna, that's something that it'll keep an eye on. If anything happens, if I have to do an emergency video or something like that, I'll let you guys know. But we'll just see how all this plays out. I'm really excited to get to NBA, to get to Major League Baseball talk. Those are my two loves. So we'll see how all this plays out now that football season is over. As we get closer to the draft, as free agent stuff starts to heat up, we will get back onto the football stuff. But now it looks like we're fixing to move more into baseball and basketball. But something different this week that I want to announce. Maybe I can get Carver, some insight from him. Maybe I can get him on a call or something like that. But there will be a second show this week. It will not only be this one show. Saturday, if you don't know, the XFL begins, which I'm really excited. I haven't looked at the rosters. That's why we're waiting till later on. We're doing the second show probably Friday. It's going to be an XFL preview, give you kind of a roster breakdown of the 8 teams, where we see them falling into. Carver's kind of done a little more digging than I have so far because I've been focused on the NFL stuff, the NBA trade deadline, stuff like that. So now that this is kind of all coming together and it's about to blow over, now this week I'm fixing to delve into the rosters and stuff more, break down the players and see what teams look like they're going to be the best. According to Carver, it looks like the Washington D.C. Defenders looks like they're the most put together team. He did make a point. I haven't decided on a team yet in the XFL because I haven't looked at the rosters. I don't know what's going down. But Dallas does have a team, the Renegades. Bob Stoops is their coach. I am a Bob Stoops fan. So we'll see. Because I'm a Cowboys fan, Carver kind of suspects the Renegades alliance for me, which I'll more than likely end up will, but when I dive deeper into it. So Friday, be looking for that video. I'm going to get my research in this week so that I can make sure that I give you guys great content going into this Saturday. Tune in to Fox, watch the XFL. It's going to give us a good segue from the NFL to the draft. We're not going to miss football as much, so that's something huge. So just be looking for that. This will be the first time we'll do 2 shows. Be looking for Carver. I haven't got confirmation from him yet, but he could possibly be dropping individual videos this week. Or an individual video this week, so be looking for him. We're working on getting together again. Hopefully it's well before the draft, but if not, I definitely plan on doing a draft show with him. If we have to, we'll do it at a neutral location. But you know what to do. Go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit the bell, get your alerts, comment on the video what you want to see, how you think we're doing so far, what do you think we can improve on. We want to hear everything. But that's really all I had to talk about. Like I said, once again, congratulations to Kansas City on their win. Congratulations to Andy Reid finally getting the monkey off his back. Patrick Mahomes is showing us just how great he really is in the stretches of games. KC is a never say die team. It seems like they've brought that Andy Reid attitude with them. San Francisco has some questions to be answered next year, and just be on the lookout for more videos. We announce them as they come, and I hope you guys enjoy.